good morning, good afternoon, and good night. My name is Marv Fox Jr., and this is Become the Podcast. How do you become anything you dream, you declare, and you commit, and success is your next breath? We're listening to the sounds of Mike Jackson, and you'll see why later. This is my third time doing this podcast. Genius level talent means so much to me that I want to make sure that I knocked it out the park. So this is my third time recording it, and this is probably my sixth or seventh time restarting the podcast over within one session to hopefully get this one down. I'm adding a component to my podcast, which is 3 points of contact, that hopefully makes me more clear, so that when I'm done, you can walk away with 3 takeaways that you can internalize and hopefully use for your benefit. And so those are the 3 points of contact. And I always say, point of contact 1, point of contact 2, point of contact 3, so you know what those points are. And then I'll get a chance to revisit them at the end of the podcast if time allows. So let's jump into it. Genius level talent is very important to me. It is one of 2 key components that creates God-ordained purpose. Genius level talent is a natural ability capable of being converted into a genius level skill. Those words are all important and very necessary. Genius level talent is a natural ability capable of being converted into a genius level skill. You're fortunate if you can discover your genius level talent when you're young. Kobe Bryant discovered his genius level talent when he was 9 or 10. Michael Jackson discovered his genius level talent when he was 6. He knew he had the ability to entertain. He looked at James Brown, he looked at Sammy Davis Jr., and he said, I can do that. And I can do that on that level, on that high level. I can captivate everybody in this room with my ability to sing, dance, and perform. As I said before, you're very fortunate if you can figure out what your genius level talent is when you're young. But you're fortunate nonetheless if you can figure out what your genius level talent is in life in general. I believe that we all get 2 to 3 genius level talents. Those genius level talents will reveal themselves in different times of our life. So if you miss out on the genius level talent when you're young, I feel throughout life you're going to get a few more. You're going to get a couple more that you can hold on to, that you can acknowledge and apply and hopefully improve the world with. Will Smith, I believe I've seen him exercise 2 genius level talents. The first one was rapping. You may not consider him to be a genius level rapper, but he is the first Grammy Award winner as a hip hop artist. He did have incredible success as an MC and had a really, really strong career. He then found acting, let's say in his mid-20s. It started off with The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Philadelphia, and then the rest is history. And then we saw him now become a genius level talent, or exemplify his genius level talent as an actor. So there's 2 genius level talents. One came when he was a teen and it was music. The next one came when he was an adult, and it was in the form of acting, right? And who knows what his next genius level talent may be. It might be humanities, it might be self-help, it might be inspirational speaking, who knows? So I'm saying to you, you're fortunate if you can figure out what your genius level talent is when you're younger, but at the end of the day, our goal is to figure out, what is my genius level talent? Why have I been exposed to this environment, exposed to this content? Why am I hardwired the way that I am hardwired and constructed? If I can figure that out and then exemplify it, manifest it, master it, then I can have an incredible impact on the world. So here's my first point of contact. Not every genius level talent, or not every skill you possess, will reach the genius level. With hard work, grit, and determination, you can turn a C-level skill into a B-level skill, a B-level skill into an A-level skill. But at some point, that skill is going to reach its limit. However, when you operate within your genius provides you a more vast capacity for knowledge and instinct. Your knowledge and instinct, when you operate within your genius, is limitless. It's limitless. It's your cheat code. It's the most trusted success mechanism. I'm going to use basketball for an example. I know that my genius level talent is faith. I understand faith. I get faith. I can teach faith. I can exemplify faith. Faith comes easy to me. I know ministers who preach about faith, right? But second something hits them, some adversity hits them, they don't they don't sound like the person who was preaching on Sunday morning. But for me, it's easy, right? I've always played basketball, and I've always wanted to be, obviously be the best basketball player that I could. And I've realized as I gotten older, I just never had the instincts. I worked myself into being a good basketball player. Basketball is a hobby for me. It's a passion, but it's a hobby. But it's not what I was built to do. I'm a good athlete, and because I was a good athlete and I had a good work ethic, I was able to play the game of basketball. But I would always marvel at people who just knew when and when not to, right? They just knew, when to shoot, when not to shoot. And they could absorb so much information and so much knowledge. And those were maybe the genius level talents that I was playing with. Those kids who had an enormous capacity for knowledge and instinct, right? And where I was capped off in terms of my knowledge and my instinct, I could only go so far. Even with hard work, great determination, I could only go so far. But there's the other kids that I played with, or kids that I've seen, or players that I've seen, that seems like their knowledge for the game is incredible, and their instinct, they just always knew when to pump fake. They knew when to go up strong. They knew when somebody was coming from behind, and they knew when to cross over. That instinct is they had a deeper capacity for instinct and knowledge, and that's what separates a lot of us when it comes to our genius level talent. We all have one, and we all have some skill that provides us with a more vast capacity for knowledge and instinct. And that's why we have to figure out what that is, because we get access to this one skill that makes us smart, that gives us incredible feel. We can do incredible things to help those around us. So that's the first point of contact. The second point of contact is, as I said before, genius level talent is our most trusted success mechanism. Now, many pursue hobby over the genius level talent because it's easier to fail in an area where you're average versus fail in an area where you're a genius, right? There's less pressure. If I know that I'm gifted or genius level talent in cooking, right? In cooking, and maybe the goal is to open up a restaurant. Well, some people will opt to pursue a hobby over their genius level talent, because if you fail at something you're not necessarily good at, that you're average at, it's easy, because at the end of the day you can say, man, this is not even what I do, man. It's not even what I'm good at. This is I was just messing around. So when you fail and you can have that excuse, then it's easy to accept. But when people know that you're gifted and you're special, and then you fail, that sometimes can be really hard. Sometimes people can be very critical, very vicious. You think about basketball players. Sometimes guys, professional athletes, don't try as hard because they don't want the pressure, or they don't want to feel what it feels like to come up short in an area where they're supposed to be special. So they find out, they go to alcohol, they go to drugs, they go to they go through phases of not trying and not working really hard, so that they give themselves some sort of excuse. They give themselves some sort of out, right? But it takes a lot of courage to say, this is my genius level talent. I'm going to put it all out on the line. And I might come up short 10 times before I finally figure it out, before I finally create magic. That takes a lot of courage. But most people, they fall to the pressure and they say, nah, man, I'm going to play around with this hobby over here and try to find success with this hobby. And some people don't pursue their genius level talent, maybe because it's not sexy enough. Let's say, for instance, you're good at teaching others, right? But you've been enamored by the idea of being some sort of recording artist, right? So you work as hard as you can to fulfill this prophecy, get fulfillment out of fulfilling a hobby of being some sort of singer, right? Instead of doing the thing that you can that's going to allow you to help the most people, which is being in education. It might pay less, but it might be so much more rewarding than singing on a stage. So there's something to think about. The third point of contact is, how do you know what your genius level talent is? This is the toughest thing. Some people are saying, Marv, I wish I could have figured out what my genius level talent is when I was younger, but man, I never knew. I couldn't. I've been tricked so many times. I believe that genius level, beginner's luck is not, it might be a sign of your potential. Sometimes God might show you your potential through beginner's luck. You ever picked up an instrument and you could just play it? You know, you ever sat on a piano and you could just kind of play it a little bit. Things just made sense to you. Without any form of training, things made sense. I was talking to my aunt Tammy. I'm DJing right now, and I know Billie Jean is a very big Michael Jackson hit, but it's not one of my favorites. Neither is Beat It. Want to Be Starting Something. I like Want to Be Starting Something more than I like Beat It and Billie Jean. So anyway, but I asked my aunt. I said, Aunt Tammy. I said, who taught you how to sew? She said, I taught myself. I said, you taught yourself? She said, yeah, I just taught myself. And she's done fashion shows. That's a genius level talent. Like if you just picked up, I said, well, how did you learn? She said, well, I used to watch my grandmother. I used to watch my mother sew, and I just picked it up. When she would get up, I would go on there. I start toying around with fabrics and thread and shapes. And next thing you know, I learned how to do it. And that's a genius level talent moment. You know, it's that moment when you feel confident. It's that moment when you feel instinctive. It's that moment where you feel like you're the smartest person in the room. It's that moment where you're incredibly focused. Your attention is sustained because there's something about what you're doing that just captivates you, and it captures your imagination, and it just makes sense to you. And sometimes we ignore that moment again for a hobby. And so when you think about your genius level talent, has there been a moment in your life that from the first point of contact you figured it out on some level? Maybe you came in last, but you still were doing better than all these people who have been doing it for years. This is your first time, and it made sense to you. Even though you didn't succeed and come in first, it still made sense to you. Is there a moment in your life that narrative has been a part of your life? Or has there been a moment when you felt like you were the smartest person in the room and you had incredible feel, you were incredibly instinctive? You need to revisit that and say, maybe I need to revisit that moment and revisit that activity and invest in it. So genius level talent, man, it's tricky, but it is tricky. It's elusive. It's mysterious. But that's the part of life. Those are one of the things you got to work for. Those are one of the things that you have to experience a little bit of failure in order to receive. So my 3 points of contact. Every skill that you possess will not reach the genius level talent, but if you operate within your genius, it provides you a more vast capacity for knowledge and instinct. A lot of people will opt for their hobby over the genius level, but understand the genius level talent is the most trusted success mechanism. It is our cheat code. And the last thing is, figure out those moments in life where you were confident, figure out those moments in life where you were focused, you were smart, you were instinctive, and try to work to live within that moment, because that is probably your genius level talent, and that is probably the one skill that you can use to enhance and improve the lives of the multitude. So with that being said, I hope that made sense. I was working with a new format. I hope that my 3 points of contact were clear. I hope you understand the importance of genius level talent. My genius level talent is to enhance the faith of others through faith. I understand faith, and I hope that today's podcast will help you discover your genius level talent, or at least put you on the right path of thinking to lead you to your genius level talent. That being said, Marv Fox Jr. signing off. Done.